Hey guys, so this ended up turning into a sort of 3-video wedding series. So this is going to be the first video you're going to see after this little clip, and it's going to go on to 2 more videos. This one's going to talk about venues, and then the next one's going to talk about getting in your budget with food, and then the third one's going to kind of talk about getting in, getting your budget down with alcohol, and then at the end of that video I talk about a lot of other things of just kind of getting, your budget and your planning together and some other just random ideas. Again, like I say at the end of my 3rd video, if anybody has any questions, anything at all, I feel like I kind of know a lot about this. Also, just a mini disclaimer, this is obviously applies to my area. I live, and I guess technically I live in the suburbs of New York City and New Jersey. Obviously weddings in New York City are extremely expensive, so here they're just kind of like a level cheaper, but in your area the prices I talk about might be astronomical to you, or they might be cheap to you. So this kind of only applies to my general area, but I would think that the techniques that I kind of mentioned would still kind of work for anybody. So I hope that they help you if you're planning a wedding on a budget. And again, just send me a message or leave a comment if you have a question. And okay, so here we are on to the first video. So I kind of started talking about this in the last video I just made about how I was trying to make videos today, and I figured while I was kind of on the topic I might as well just make the video. This video is going to be about like how to have a wedding on a budget, how to have an alternative wedding. I don't really have an outline for this, I don't really have a plan for this, I'm just going to kind of talk about it, and hopefully if you're planning a wedding you get something out of it. I planned my wedding for a long time, and I think I found a lot of things that would be very helpful to someone who doesn't really know what they're doing. And most of the time when you're getting married you don't really know what you're doing, because most, especially when you're around my age or in your 20s, you've probably never been married before, so you probably never had a wedding before unless you had a sister or a close friend who's already married. Is to know kind of what your budget maximum is. To have something that you'd like to spend, but then have like let's say that your parents are going to help you, to establish like exactly how much money that they're going to give you, or they can give you, or they can give you up to, and establish anybody else who's already planning on helping you. The other thing you have to remember when you're worrying about a budget is most people, they say that when you go to a wedding you should gift the couple the same cost as what the plate is. Now what that means is, if you're not familiar with that term, it means that however much it costs per person per plate to eat. So when you're planning a wedding and when you're getting your prices, you're going to get a per person price. You're not going to get yes, of course you do the math and you have a final price, but you're going to get, when they give you a sheet, it's going to say blah 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 a person. So that's what they mean by that. So most people say it's common to do that, to give the present. So like if a couple is going, most people say, most people give you around $100 a person. So you have to figure if a couple's coming, most of them are going to give you $200 or $150. So if you want to have a nice wedding but you can't afford it, you can also remember that if you're okay with it, your gifts kind of make up for a part of the money that you spend. You can't guarantee it, obviously. You can't bank on that. You have to at least have a little bit of wiggle room on that. But to some degree you can understand that you're going to be getting some portion of the money back. So, like I said, start with the budget. The next thing I would say, well, if you're having an alternative wedding, a lot of times alternative people don't want to get married at like a run-of-the-mill wedding venue, and that's obviously what we did not want. We didn't want a run-of-the-mill wedding venue with white and gold and the same standard white chairs and the white pillars. Like, that wasn't what we wanted. So you have to be a little bit inventive with what you want. So when you start looking for venues, what I would say, if you are somebody of alternative persuasion, things like historic venues, personally, tend to go a lot better with alternative types of styles. Another thing that goes really well with alternative types of styles is something kind of nature-y and like in the woods, like kind of a cabin sort of a feel. Originally, that was what we wanted to go with. We wanted to go somewhere like out in the woods. And surprisingly, that was a lot more difficult than we thought it would be. So we ended up looking at a lot of places that were summer camps because they have mess halls, which, you know, would be a very big hall, and obviously you just get married outside somewhere in the woods and around outside of the big mess hall or whatever they call it at that particular camp. The issue with that you have to remember is if you choose to do something like that, like a camp or a mess hall or whatever whatever kind of a place it is like that, it's not a wedding venue. It's not meant to have a wedding at. So what that means is that you have to do everything yourself. You have to rent tables, you have to rent chairs, you have to rent people to set up the tables and chairs, you have to rent plates, you have to rent cups, you have to rent forks, knives, spoons, forks. I know I just repeated something, but you have to rent everything. And then yeah, so renting everything isn't the biggest deal, but you have to rent the people to do it. And that's the bigger deal, is having somebody to do all of those things. Because if not, you are going to spend hours before your wedding setting up, and you're going to spend your entire wedding night stocking the vehicles and driving it back to the rental place instead of, you know, enjoying your wedding night. That was still our original plan, and I have to tell you, I am so happy that it didn't happen that way. We ended up, sorry guys, I didn't drink water. Plan A is that we ended up, we looked at a couple summer, well, I don't know if we actually looked at any other ones. All in all, I think we ended up looking at I think we ended up going to 3 different summer camps by the end of everything. We ended up picking the second one at some point, and we were intending to move forward with that. I had picked the spot I wanted to have the ceremony, but there was a lot of spots, so even if I could have moved it around. I had found a rental place, I had kind of picked out what I wanted, and then I toyed between going, because Oriental Trading, if anybody knows the website Oriental Trading, they do have like a really nice stuff to have a wedding that's sort of a lower budget if you want to do something like that, because they have like really nice like paper and plastic stuff, and like it's meant for weddings. Like they have every color, all different styles, all different patterns, and it's pretty, but it's plastic and paper. It's not, like a reasonable nice plate. But that is another route for you to go if you have a small budget, is to go to Oriental Trading and like buy all of your stuff and just throw it out at the end. Like that's totally fine, and you could totally do that, and it still have like, it won't look like you went to Target and bought a stack of white paper plates. They'll look like they're nice plates, but they'll just be paper. So that was kind of, we were toying between renting plates and doing that, and then I just didn't feel good about the idea of using the paper plates. It wasn't what I was looking for in my wedding, because when I was going with the sort of woodsy theme, like I wanted like very rustic and kind of like a wood fairy, Black Forest kind of a, I don't know. I don't even really know where I was going. I was kind of all over the place at the beginning. You'll find once you start looking through websites, like alternative, like especially Offbeat Bride and all different stuff, like what is the other one, Rock and Roll Bride. You'll get so many ideas, and like sometimes they kind of don't really fit together. Like there's just a lot of ideas and a lot of things you want to do, and they just kind of don't end up. You're gonna have to drop some things. Like I wanted something, just one thing. It's like I wanted a lot more German elements in my wedding, and I only ended up with 1, and I had like the idea of like 4 or 5, and sometimes you have to see like some things just don't end up fitting together, and it ends up working out fine though. So we booked that place, we liked that place, and it was cool, and I really liked the spot, and it was on the lake, and it was nice, but it was a lot of work. And the issue was, like, we were trying to sign the contract, and they were like, oh, don't worry about it. It was like a summer camp. Like, they didn't care about contracts and stuff. So that was, so the last time we went there was October of 2011. We got married in October 2012. We had seen a person who worked there, and by, like, February, like, I think it was either January or February, we still had no contract, and by then they had actually stopped answering us. And so I started emailing, like I was emailing somebody at blah blah blah.com So I emailed back to the main website and I was like, hey, we're trying to book, you know, our wedding here, and it's 7 months away, our wedding, and we haven't signed the contract, and we're kind of getting worried, blah, blah, blah. So we ended up starting to work with somebody else because the original girl left and got another job and just never told us. So the woman gets back to us and tells us that because of the hurricane we had that year in 2011, what was that? I don't even remember what that, I just remember Sandy, so I don't remember what that one before it was. There was some issue with people who were getting married that weekend in the park of Bear Mountain State Park, and I don't know if the state of New York or Bear Mountain State Park changed their rules, and I believe it was Bear Mountain State Park changed their rules, and they were no longer giving out permits to people who wanted to get married in the park who weren't getting married at something that's called the Bear Mountain Inn, which is a wedding venue in Bear Mountain, but it's extremely expensive and well beyond anything we could have afforded, so that wasn't even like an option. So we kind of had to start over, and starting over sucked, but ultimately I'm happy that it happened because we ended up with a much better place. So starting over, I guess we did this in the beginning too, but you kind of go to those websites where I think like Wedding Wire is one, and there's, if you just kind of Google like wedding venue search engines or whatever, you'll just be able to type in like a location you want to go, and it'll list pages and pages and pages and pages of venues you can look at. Now obviously a lot of them are, like I said before, run-of-the-mill white, cream, gold ballrooms that might not be what you want for your alternative wedding. But if you look, there are other places, and what we had kind of started gearing towards then was a historic venue, something that was, you know, we were like antique collectors, so something that was kind of, you know, a little older looking and just wasn't obviously a traditional wedding venue.